जिंदगी में बड़ा तभी कुछ कर पाओगे जब अर्निंग पर नहीं लर्निंग पर ध्यान लगाओगे। जो पानी से नहाएगा वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ लिबास बदल सकता है। जो पानी से नहाएगा वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ लिबास बदल सकता है। जो पसीने से नहाएगा दोस्तों वो पूरी दुनिया का इतिहास बदल सकता है। पूरी दुनिया का इतिहास बदल सकता है। वेलकम टू द माय चैनल अमित कुमार गोला। लाइक सब्सक्राइब और शेयर करना बिल्कुल ना भूलें दोस्तों, एंड घंटी को दबाएं एंड रीड नाउ बुक।
To another edition of the book review from CCXP Exam Simulator. This is Michael Bartlett, and today we're going to be reviewing Dan Lock's book called Unlock It, The Master Key to Wealth, Success and Significance, published by Forbes Books. For those of you who don't know who Dan Lock is, he's a, I guess you could say, a Chinese-Canadian entrepreneur. I first heard of him through Evan Carmichael's YouTube channel, so there'll be a lot of videos you'll see on Dan, his top 10 rules of success, that kind of thing. I'm reviewing this on this channel. Obviously I'm more interested in customer experience books, but this is a very interesting book for entrepreneurs, and I think, you know, every entrepreneur is looking at trying to find ways to unlock CX in their business as well. And this actually gives some really interesting ideas that kind of fall along those lines. So that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to review it. So let's get stuck in real quick. So I have 10 book notes for you. Book note number 1. One of the key concepts in this book is that of a high income skill that can make you up to $10,000 per month. Dan was actually able to double his price over and over again once he'd acquired a very strong high income skill. His was copywriting. You can also stack high income skills on top of one another as well. There's a really interesting section of the book that I'm going to read to you now. Okay, so this is page 79, and it's from a section called Why is $10,000 the Magic Number? And I quote, "There are 2 reasons why $10,000 per month is the magic number for a high income skill. First, by earning $10,000 a month, which is $120,000 a year, you'll be in the top 6% of income earners in America. You'll also be able to sustain a comfortable lifestyle. The second reason is a significant insight that no one else is talking about right now. It's an insight I've gained only from my personal experience. From my past 2 decades of teaching people from all over the world, I noticed something strange about people's psychology and income level. There is a glass ceiling most people have with earning $10,000 in a single month. If they don't make it, then they are one type of person, but if they do, they become another type of person." And Dan goes on to give examples and talk about how he's seen this through numbers of different people, his students and so forth. And he stresses the importance of building this kind of skill. High income skills are also transferable across industries. So if you have these kind of skills and you're in one kind of industry, and maybe there's a recession, something happens, you lose your job, you can transfer that and you can go work in a completely different industry. So it gives flexibility as well to the holder of these skills. Dan says it's all about communicating your value better than your competition. So when Dan was first told by his mentor, and he gives a great account of this in the book, double what you're asking for, double it again. Dan's self-belief held him back. He was kind of projecting as to what he would pay onto the skills. Maybe he was undervaluing himself. And so his mentor literally had him go and practice in front of a mirror and keep saying, what's your daily rate? How much are you charging for the project? And Dan would have to respond each time, and he would stutter. And finally, they kept doing it until the point where Dan actually was able to say it confidently and believe in it. So it sounds like a silly exercise, but I'm taking him at his word that this actually happened, and it kind of makes sense. A large part of life to some degree is rehearsal, and so Dan had to rehearse and make sure he's prepared so that when he goes into these meetings, he can demand the kind of high dollar figures that he talks about in the book. The third note is success requires effort. So Dan talks about the idea of passive income, and he doesn't like that phrase. He thinks it's very misleading. He doesn't want people being sucked into a lot of the stuff you see now where people are promising these lifestyles where you'll go surfing around the world and the money will just come in and accumulate in the bank account. there are some people that are able to do that, but they are the people that work the hardest, and that's what Dan's kind of stressing in his book, is that, you know, there's going to have to be a lot of effort made at the beginning to try and grow the business and to build social capital. We'll talk about those things later on in the review, but success requires a lot of effort. You don't just, you know, set up an Amazon seller account and make millions like a lot of people claim. He talks about the wealth triangle. I thought this was very interesting and kind of gives an order for it as well. So firstly, you obtain power from your high income skills. Then once you've got those, you can then profit from scaling a business that uses those skills. And then finally, he says, then that gives you the possibility, once you've been able to scale the business, to then look at some high return investments. So these kind of take you through the various stages of financial security. But obviously, he stresses, you know, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to get those high income skills. Another section I thought was pretty neat in the book was he talks about how to calculate your adjusted hourly rate. On the surface level, it's pretty straightforward. You know, he asks you to think about what you'd like to make in a year, then, you know, divide that by 12 to get your monthly income, and so on and so on. But he says, obviously, people don't work 8 hours a day. You know, people have distractions, people have things happening. So he has a little formula in the book that I won't spoil for you, but it basically tells you how to calculate an adjusted hourly rate. So if you're an entrepreneur and someone, I mean, I had this happen to me the other day, actually. A guy that I know was sitting in a restaurant with me, and he just looked at me and he said, Mike, you know, I need you to work on this project. What's your daily rate? And I didn't have an answer for him. It's not really a project that I was expecting to even to be offered. But I wish that I'd had something like Dan's book available at the time, because at least then I would have been able to give him an answer. Maybe we could have negotiated from there. But being able to know, you know, what your rate should be based on your high income skills and based on what your goals are for what you want to earn in a year, having that little graph there where you can calculate it right in all the boxes is very helpful. So you'll be able to actually give people a number. Another great thing I liked about Dan's book is he talks about scripting your day versus scheduling your day. The distinction is that when you schedule your day, you're basically deciding what's going to happen based on what other people want, and he's all about take control of your day and be as productive as you can. So that's why you need to script your day. You think about what you need to get done. You need to look at things like the 80-20 rule to kind of decide what should be prioritized and then work on those things that matter to you. He has a really interesting chapter at the end of the book talking about sales, so there's some good takeaways from that. The first one is that the less you talk, the more you close. Simply put, you know, the more that you listen, i.e. the less that you talk, the more you're going to learn about your clients or your prospective clients. And that means that you'll be able to learn more about their pain points. You can ask the right questions to drill into those, and then you can paraphrase that back to them to show them that you've understood it. But essentially, you don't want to be like the typical slimy salesman who's always talking. The key is to just listen, soak up everything, drill down, and then be specific with words. So ask them, you know, what specifically can I help you with, those kind of things. And he has a whole section about that as well. So it just allows clarity between you and your prospect so that you can, you know, decide ultimately whether or not what you're selling them is actually going to be a good fit for them. And one thing Dan stresses is that you don't just sell for the sake of selling. You sell to add value, and if your product's not right, be prepared to recommend a different solution, maybe buy a competitor. He talks about the 3 stages of what he calls a high ticket closing call. My understanding of this term is that it's more of a
दिखा उतना जितना कि तेरे पास हो, दिखा उतना जितना कि तेरे पास हो, और बात उतनी का जिन तेरी औकात हो। दिल की गहराई से प्यार भरा नमस्कार।